Good evening, everybody. It's 6 p.m. This is the regular business meeting of the Smithfield Township Board of Supervisors. Please join in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Members present include myself, Chair Jacob Pride, Vice Chair Robert Lovenheim, Supervisor Michael Albert, Township Manager Julia Hylika, Administrative Coordinator Diana Salvi, Solicitor Mark Parasak, and Engineer John Tressler. Announcements: there's an executive session this evening from 4 p.m. to 5:29 p.m. regarding attorney-client privilege matters in the litigation against Back 9 MX. Also want to announce that the Rivers Edge Bike Park Survey closes February 28th. So if you know anyone that still hasn't responded, do it now. And also, Diana, do you just briefly want to say something about the Hop and Hunt Save the Date?
It's April 19th. It's gonna be from 1 to 3 p.m. The hunt's gonna be at 2. And I'm gonna get flyers and the Facebook event up by tomorrow.
Awesome. So save the date, everybody. It's gonna be great.
That's
Where
here.
will it be? At the park.
Yep,
Right.
Waterfront Park. Waterfront Park.
I assume that's Easter,
Requested.
Yes.
not Fox.
First order of business is the minutes of the January 6th regular meeting and the January 28th regular meeting. Do I hear a motion on the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Albert. Question?
Oh, yeah?
Aye. Bills and obligations, we have $137,191.63 between the general fund, escrow fund, and the capital improvement grant fund. Do I hear a motion on the bills?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Levenheim. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Albert. Questions?
Yes. Who is Robert Clark?
That's RJ Clark who started tree cutting.
Tree, RJ. Never seen his name as Robert. Got it.
Excuse me, while you're on that, with the cutting guy, is that the tree cutting guy that was in, the Frisbee Park? Cutting trees
Not certain.
and trimming trees?
We had two different vendors. do
Yeah,
that one, right?
he was in River's Edge, yes,
Is he insured?
yes.
I think he is. I've used him before.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And he works for himself as a tree person?
Yes. Correct.
Okay,
He is insured, he's done other work for us in the past, we've seen his insurance.
okay, but he's insured
Yes.
under Robert J. Clark.
And whatever he calls his business, I
Yeah,
assume it's there.
if the business name might actually be RJ's Tree Service.
Yeah.
Might be.
Okay. Okay.
$500 to Sharon Goodrich. What's that for?
Office supplies, if not mistaken.
Correct.
Yep.
From Sharon?
The annual, we pay that expense
Corporate office supplies that she
as
gets.
tax collector.
It's a tax collector.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Yeah. Thank
Anything
you.
else?
Yeah, I have a couple more questions in reference to the bills. Digman's Ferry Stone Incorporated. What was that for? An awful lot of money.
Oh, salt. Right?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, Digman's Ferries, we got our anti-skid from there, so with all of the storms.
Right,
that we've
Got a
had.
what for them?
Anti-skid,
That's them. They do anti-skid.
Yep.
And Double M Productions.
Yeah, that was the other one.
they
There's
are,
apparel.
yeah, they're in apparel, you'll see that our road crew has shirts and sweatshirts that say Smithfield Township on them.
And that's not from Dempsey, that's on the other page. They don't do
Dempsey
Dempsey's
uniforms.
cleaning.
does cleaning. The Double M Productions is specifically things like t-shirts and sweatshirts. So our guys can be identified by constituents while they're on the road.
Okay, that's right.
And then what about Sylvie Group?
That is another I
So-
wanna say they're salt. Yep, salt.
That's through the COG bid.
For what?
The COG bid, the collective purchasing with the other municipalities.
So they provide materials, they don't provide a service.
Correct, they bring it here, so our crew can take it and put it in the trucks and disperse it across the township roads.
Got it. Is this like, this is a lot of
It's
stuff.
in budget, that's what it is.
What is that going for per ton?
We'll have to look at the bid and get that to you.
The bid, by the way, is all of the townships in the county, it's bid together for the salt and for anti-skid. So we get, you know, whatever the discount price is from, the amount that's used all over the county for every town.
So the county puts it out for bid
No,
and they award.
every municipality has one delegate to the Pocono Mountains Council of Governments. We collectively request proposals on things like road salt, anti-skid, fuel, and line striping.
Mhm.
So this is just one of those things that we collectively bid for a better price.
Okay, but then so the price is what's negotiated.
Correct.
And it's $82 a ton that we pay.
Thanks, thank you.
It's a
And
lot of
so
times,
is
so.
it delivered? That's a lot of, yeah. So is that delivered as needed? We don't have a
A surplus? We
Yeah.
occasionally have a surplus.
well, not a surplus, but a holding area.
Yes, the
We do.
township has a stockpile.
Yes,
But it only holds so much, and
Correct.
so they're replenishing this, okay.
Correct.
Alright, so that's all.
Guys have been out there working hard.
yep. Anything else? All in favor? Aye. Okay, solicitors report.
For the month of January, I attended 2 meetings, one on January 9, which was the joint meeting with the supervisors and the planning commission. And then the regular planning commission meeting. And then I also attended in part the meeting of January 28th via Zoom. I have prepared advertising notices for the special exception use zoning amendment and send those out as appropriate. I reviewed the East Stroudsburg Youth Association and Middleton Park Field agreements. I reviewed the ordinance to amend the retirement plan documents via resolution. I reviewed various supplemental documents, cost and quantity estimates and related items for the Franklin Hill Manor preliminary subdivision and preliminary land development plan, the Chiquitas Estate sketch plan, the Whitmer Land Development Plan, and the Water Gap Wellness Recreation Center Land Development Plan. I reviewed and prepared several pleadings with respect to the Mountain Manor Back 9 MX appeal to the Commonwealth Court, along with preparing and reviewing various pleadings and documents regarding the Mountain Manor 9MX, Back 9MX injunction case. The most recent item was a motion to dissolve, which covered 40 pages and had 221 allegations. And I also prepared documents with respect to the Ellis summary appeal.
Awesome. Board, anything? Okay. John?
Okay, our last 2 weeks have been pretty quiet. There were no plans to review. We have been working on getting the final permits for the pipes and Airstrip Road. If you recall, we obtained emergency permits so that construction could proceed there without interruption. But now we have to convert those to permanent permits for the township. The other application we made was to the DEP for a maintenance permit, a GP 11 for Green Mountain Drive Bridge. That was submitted. We got comments back from DEP already, which is a little bit unusual. They were pretty quick this
Yeah.
time. And there was only one comment, so I expect that permit to be issued next week. And that's all that I have, unless there's any questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Julia, anything you want to note?
don't have much. We are nearing completion for the Green Light Go. I'm preparing to submit for reimbursement for that. Which is exciting to see this project this close to the finish line. I've been working on the Green Mountain Drive Bridge grant as well. We've had some good forward momentum with that. Hopefully we can announce that news next meeting. Once we've got all the paperwork squared away. And a lot of my time has been taking up with court cases that the township is involved in.
Sure,
That's pretty much it.
awesome. Thank you. Brett, do you want to say anything for the Environmental Advisory Council?
Yes, we had a good meeting last week. We're happy to welcome Robert on board. Infusing us with enthusiasm. And we also decided to double up our meeting schedule, so we're gonna meet twice a month as needed. But we hope to get more done this year. So we're managing our time moving forward.
Excellent,
Thank you.
thank you. Tara Mezzanotte is not here, and we don't have anything new on I-80 or 611. Supervisors' comments, anything?
No, nothing for me.
Nothing for me.
Okay. We have no old business. We proceed to new business. Under the consent agenda, we have the right-of-way agreement with Blue Ridge Cable Technologies regarding fiber optics. Consideration of the Franklin Hill Manor subdivision sewage planning module that just solicits the comments, if I'm not mistaken, John. And then the consideration to authorize the advertisement for the grounds maintenance contract bid. What we discussed, do I hear a motion?
I'd just like to make a comment first that,
Wait.
We got a motion first
Yeah.
before,
okay, motion to approve.
I will second.
Make a comment that, in the Franklin Hill Manor subdivision, there's been questions of the water runoff. John and I actually walked it ourselves, some months ago and, checked it out. And I just wanted to know if there's any reason that we should require a swale or anything, or is it all right the way it is with the city?
Well, that's already been designed into
Into it,
the plans, yes.
okay. It will carry it away from the road area that is getting flooded.
Yes, the water, there currently is water that is going across the road that will be diverted and slowed down.
Okay,
And down at the intersection with Franklin Hill Road, that pipe size is being increased. The amount of water is not being increased, the pipe is just being made more efficient, so that.
And just to confirm, this is not related to the land development. This is just the sewage planning module that the planning commission recommended. Hanover had no comments. They said it was fine to move forward. Hi is on the Zoom if you do have any questions regarding that plan.
I just more a question of what helped me. What is this? I was at the planning commission briefly. I saw it was moved forward, but it was just accepting the sewage facilities planning model. What am I?
No, it's actually approving that. They've done their testing
Okay,
and it's been witnessed by your township SEO. He's comfortable with everything that was done, so you're approving the planning module.
this approves the plan model just for the sewage facility.
Just for
It's
the
not the
sewage.
site development plan.
Not at all.
I understand there is still some outstanding
Correct.
issues.
This would be one of them. I mean, one of the conditions was that they get their sewage planning module approved.
And then the other one was the easements, which I think is the bigger one.
They no longer need an easement at the intersection of Franklin Hill and Albert Lane. That easement they don't need. I believe they have all of their easements that they have. They're whittling away at their conditions.
John, do you know what the major ones that have been holding it up are? Because they were scheduled at the planning commission for months and they keep postponing it. You know,
I think the planning module was a significant one.
And I said they did not, I see in here, they have not waived. What did it say? Sorry.
It was on the first page, right? Can you look at this?
Yeah, it was something
That the waiver from the sewage planning, the sewage facilities planning is not requested.
it's not requested, so they have to do that.
Correct.
Okay.
And they have to still pay conservation or DEP. That was the only other thing listed by Hanover in December.
Yes, and they have provided that check to the township. Once this goes through approval, it's already done through the approval with the planning commission. If you choose to approve it tonight, we'll get those pages signed and I will send out the planning module.
Well, it's a motion on the table.
Any questions on the other items? Ground maintenance bid is routine.
Yeah, that looks
The only
normal.
thing new is the right of way
Yeah,
agreement with Blue Ridge.
so this is not our they're not going to our property. Or they're going, which property are they going over? On some, it's Airstrip Road, is that the?
Correct.
My understanding is there's really only gonna be a guy wire. We did talk to them about it. I couldn't really understand their sketch too well. So we called them, spoke to them, and they said there really was only gonna be a guy wire, so.
What's the guy wire?
The wire that comes down from the pole,
Yeah.
but
Okay,
it's opposite of where the lines hangs, so you keep it from
Right.
sagging.
but those are our poles,
No, they're there.
No, it's our.
so
our
why
right
do
of
they need a
way,
right of?
Because we hold the right of way.
We
have
hold
to
the right of
consent
way
to
and
anything
they're
that would go-
erecting them within our right of way.
Right,
Oh, so they need the right for the guy poles, because they already have the poles, they already have the right to put the wire on the poles,
Correct.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
confused about.
Yeah.
this is within our 33 feet or 50 feet right away, depending on which
I see this, I
side
don't,
of
that
the
these
street.
posts,
Yes,
okay, between the poles, basically, like.
Yes.
yeah, like by the trees, at Silverback and all that.
Why do they need extra posts? So it's fine, I'm just,
I think they're running a new service to.
Right.
To the new building they're buying on,
yes,
so they needed to put new poles in for the wire.
okay, alright, so new poles,
Well, because it's fiber optic, there's only like a handful of other fiber optic connections in the township. One of which I think is the Innovation Center.
yeah,
I don't know if there's really any others.
okay, great. I don't know if there's any other comments.
Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public hearing on draft ordinance number 254, providing for special exception criteria. This has been duly advertised. Julia or Ron, one of you has the proof of publication. That will say that this hearing on starts 6/18. Whichever one of you has that. Go over the proof of publication.
I have,
Ron has that.
I think you've got it. If not, I can pull it up.
yeah, I have, the, publication for there has to be a township advertisement once a week for 2 successive weeks, not more than 30 nor less than 7 days before the hearing. And the record reflects that I have noticed that was published in the Pocono Record on January 30 and September 6, 2025. And then there also has to be a special notice posted under the name of the township solicitor with respect to this matter. And that was posted on February 13. So the advertising is in place.
Just to clarify, Ron, you said September 6th instead of February 6th, so it's February.
All right, I'm losing my mind, but yes, it is February 6th, not September 6th. So those 3 notices have been put in the paper and they were put in timely.
Great, thank you. I know it was favorably reviewed upon by both the Monroe County and Smithfield Township Planning Commissions. This provides for specific criteria where there presently does not exist any under that section.
You should know, Mr. Chair, that Eagle Eye Michael Albert noted something here this evening as we were reviewing this. And he may want to just explain that to you.
Yeah,
Sure. go ahead,
yeah,
Mike.
so in keeping with some points that were expressed by some citizens about, is there any meat to this? I do realize that the main meat is actually a reference, because if you look at, section 2 talks about the
Right.
requirements, and it specifically references chapter 27, where all the meat of a land development plan is effectively meaning it is an entirely new conditional use hearing, effectively, because that is what the conditional use. The challenge is simply, there's actually nothing wrong with this. This is all correct.
Right,
But we will probably need to go in and amend that section because that section continuously references the Board of Supervisors, but in a special exemption use requirement, they're all the same
Right.
requirements, but it is the zoning hearing board
Oh,
that
we
is
brought this up
required.
when Scott and Maury spoke about it at the planning commission. I think I remember that.
I remember
The
it.
issue is
Yeah.
that the old ordinance didn't have any special
Right.
exception uses, it
Right.
dealt only with conditional uses.
Right,
That are decided by you as the
Sure.
board. Since we now have the special exception use ordinance in place, we should note that
Yeah.
in addition to the board deciding conditional uses, the zoning hearing board decides special exception.
I mean, I do believe that, I mean, the great thing is that section rightly has significant amount of meat
right, on top of what's added.
on
here.
top of what here. In fact, section, what you see in A, B, C, D, and E is actually exact same thing that's already in 706.
Right,
So
Can I ask a question, because I'm really struggling to follow along. There's no stenographer here, isn't there supposed to be a stenographer here?
This is a legislative matter, it's not a judicial matter.
it is a public hearing. That doesn't indicate that there's a requirement for a stenographer. That's just tradition when it involves a land development matter.
Okay, got it, sorry, thank you.
No, or like
Now I
a,
can focus.
yeah, I'll say, I think there's a lot of meat in 705, so I feel comfortable in this. It's one of the things that I was looking into to see if there was a way to have more meat into special exemption use. I think there's plenty in here because it basically is going through an entirely a conditional use again. So I feel comfortable. The only thing that we need to address. Just want to make us, I feel comfortable having spoken briefly with Ron that this is okay to pass right now, and I understand how important it is to get something in place ASAP, but I do think we need fairly quickly to just update this so that the Board of Supervisors aren't the ones that are doing the site plan review. It is the zoning hearing board, because they're the ones that are tasked with approving this.
If it was, Michael, before the meeting individually pointed out the sections to me that need to be updated.
Yeah.
I can make sure that that zoning amendment is on your agenda for, March 11th.
well, I was gonna say that'll be the other ones that were the submission requirements, right, that we wanted to.
I'm not going to have time to, complete the submission requirements and this, and for the sake of ensuring that the submission requirements do not in any way slow this update down, I'd rather keep them separate.
Well, hold on.
Because I don't know that they have the ability to do it.
So this is, I mean. Well, while we're here talking, I mean, I know I want to get this, but, and it probably can happen in here. The zoning hearing board doesn't necessarily have an engineer.
Right,
I mean, this is stating they have to go through a whole review.
You can still have the engineer
Yeah.
do the review and then have the zoning hearing board make a decision. That's what I was.
we
Okay.
are, by virtue of all zoning hearing board decisions, party to them, so we can submit them as the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. So, I mean, okay.
Can you explain that? You lost me there.
The Board of Supervisors is party to any case that zoning hearing board hears.
Right,
So we are able to, by default,
Provide the engineer's review.
provide the engineer review,
Provide the
provide,
engineer to do the review.
and provide our perspective.
you mean,
John,
Instead of,
no, they don't have an engineer on the zoning hearing board.
Correct.
wouldn't the applicant need to have engineering?
Absolutely.
They'd have to do it but we have to review it. So the whole idea is this document references.
Are
Says
you talking about the ordinance 254 or 27705?
ordinance 254 references 27705 as required. That is the meat that you were hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically saying you have to meet all these criteria in addition to these criteria.
Mm-hmm.
Those criteria include a full site development review.
Mm-hmm.
But 204 is approved by the zoning hearing board and the planning commission.
Right.
Oh, well, it's reviewed by the planning commission, so you'd have to
Yes,
do it for the planning
they are.
commission anyway. True.
Correct.
So, I misspoke on that. The planning commission has the engineer, so the engineer would have to do the full review for the planning commission. The planning
Before
commission
it
would have
got
to,
to.
before it got to the zoning hearing.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Your motion to close the public hearing?
Well, no, wait, oh, I didn't realize we were doing that. No, I have questions.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I apologize, but I'm still struggling to understand why this is. What in our zoning code do we have in place for special exception uses?
Nothing.
We have just the
Okay.
existing standard health, safety, welfare things, but prohibited uses. Which
Right,
we relied upon in other land use appeals, but we didn't have anything.
There is a
Like a
reference
traditional
to
use.
it though. Is there not a reference to special?
Yeah.
Well, there
There
are,
is,
well,
yeah.
there are, because
And it-
special exceptions are for the. Currently, we don't have any uses besides the expansion of a nonconformity. So in the event that we added something else, or we just wanted something more on the bone for the expansion of a nonconformity, we would hear it under that criteria.
can you give me an example of what something?
If you
else-
have a hotel in a, let's say R2 zone,
Let's say R1, can we say R1?
sure, if you wanna have a leading example, absolutely.
Sure, thank you.
No, an
Let's
existing,
just do the one with Mountain Manor. Mountain Manor said they were a resort and they had a use. And that they could use a motocross track, and it says that if you're changing the use to a motocross track, you've got to do it by special exception.
correct,
Fortunately, the court jumped upon a section of the ordinance that says, no matter what you have, you can't annoy neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. Other than that, we would have lost that case.
correct.
So Ron, can I follow up on that comment with a question? It's my understanding, I could be wrong, that a special exception approval is for an existing non-conforming use. Is
No.
that accurate? It is
No.
not accurate, okay.
That's what our ordinance says, but you can have special exceptions for, let's say, some kind of special mixed use development or something like that. Our ordinance says that if you're changing a
Our
non,
current ordinance, not
Current
not
ordinance.
this new one.
No, this new one 100% says that too, we're not adding any uses. The existing reference is to an existing nonconformity that gets expanded. We have no plans to add other special exception uses. An example would be in Coolbaugh Township, in some parcels, a warehouse is a special exception use. So you would have to go through that in order to get approval for a warehouse.
Instead of
Then go to
conditional
land
use.
Right,
So an existing non-conforming property,
yes,
business, site, whatever.
like I'll guess that the Minnesink Inn is in a R1 zone. If they wanted to expand the building, they would need a special exception. But we're not planning to say, okay, now you can add, other types of facilities as a special exception category.
You can just make your current non-conforming use larger.
Correct, and that's in the existing ordinance.
Right now you can do it, but there's no right now you can do that, but
Right,
there's no criteria for how you do it. So the
So-
concern from our lawyer that he brought up was if someone shows up and says, if Minisink shows up right here, Ratel, and says, I'm gonna triple the size of this. You've got no criteria by which to say no, so
It's as if it's principal permitted
it's a
use.
it becomes automatic.
but we also know that both conditional use and special exception hearings are already skewed heavily in favor of the developer.
There is a shifting
The
burden.
burden on the opposition is enormous. That's been clarified by all of you in the past.
Correct.
So,
That's why you want the criteria though, because if they don't meet the criteria, then the burden doesn't shift, the case dies. If they do meet it, then you have to evaluate those to show that there's an abnormal effect that's unreasonable for.
So what
you
would
expect.
happen right now if our ordinance remains the way it is and a non-conforming property wants to expand? What would happen?
They are required to submit a zoning application and a fee for $1,500, and that's it.
And then they can, and then they have to submit land development though, don't they?
No,
Don't they have to have?
That's what we're
approval
doing.
zoning?
You
That's what this
Like
says.
Sewage inspection, and wouldn't that be part of the
To be
zoning?
clear, you do need to do all of that still. We just don't have the ability to add conditions or any specific requirements that are specific to the site.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
wanna
I
be
see that's
able-
in there.
You can't really add that if you don't have criteria to base it off of.
Okay,
So in a conditional use application where it deals with traffic flow, we can say, okay, you can only have single lane access.
right,
Or right in, right out as a condition of the use.
right,
When, you know, it was on a township road. Right now, you know, if they're amenable to it, we can certainly do that, but right now, they could submit it. And they still have to follow all of our other ordinances, it doesn't give them any special permission to do anything different. We just don't get the chance to add anything else on.
mhm. And is that the meat of this ordinance, is that the basis for?
Yes.
So,
Yes,
how would this apply to them?
because they said that they were a resort. It's in an R1 zone, so a resort is a non-conforming use. And Mountain Manor said, since we are a non-conforming use, we want to add to the resort a motocross use, just like you could add to resort swimming, golfing, whatever. And as a result, we should get that use through a special exception. But, you know, wink, wink, there's no special exception.
Okay, that's the clearest that I understand it, so thank you.
I mean, it was through that process when we found this.
Mhm.
Oh, I may be missing this, but does it specifically say in here, it's in addition to a non-conforming use?
So that's in the current ordinance, this
Oh.
just adds that criteria. So we don't have a red line one in front of us because this adds everything new to it.
What section is it, do you know?
It would be chapter 27, I believe it should be like under 27,705. Be like 706 or in that.
You mean, you use the reference to the special exception?
Yeah, I'm looking at
I
just.
think that's in the 600 somewhere.
Because presently, if you look on our,
Section 605, 604,
right,
under the non-conformities, there's a whole section.
Alteration of non-conforming
Yes.
uses,
yes,
uh,
That's,
Yeah.
what is that, 27 what? Chapter
27,604.
604.
Yeah.
Mine isn't that,
right,
isn't that bad?
you're good.
Right, that's, yeah.
So right now, you'll notice under the schedule of district regulations that outline what uses are permitted where, there is no special exception category. There's only principal permitted use, conditional use, and accessory uses. So we don't have any special exception uses and we don't intend to.
Except right there,
Right,
except in that language right there, we have special exception.
correct.
Such alteration, reconstruction, extension, or enlargement shall be permitted only by special exception. Here you go.
So how does change of non-conforming use play into this, 27,605?
In what way? You have to ask a little bit more specific.
So if,
Let's assume someone had an elevator business in a non-conforming, as a non-conforming use in R1. Someone wants to, an elevator, we wanna build, we wanna have a window assembly business. Question becomes, okay, how close is that to the non-conformity? Was it worse? Is it better? Is it more intense, less intense? And then you go through the zoning, the laundry list there, the alterations and how you may want to change that.
But what she's saying is it doesn't use the word special exception.
Correct.
It's in that.
No,
section.
it doesn't. It only deals with that one non-conformity.
Right. And
Only
check-
deals with that one section.
With the other change of use, you need to get your permit, but you can't change from one non-conformity to another. You have to change to a conforming use.
so you're saying that, but, and maybe I'm reading it wrong if that's the case, because this doesn't seem congruous with 27,605.
That's why it's an independent section.
It's not related to 605. 605 would stay, as I read it, would stay as is. So you'd have to submit shall apply
But
to
aren't they
zoning
at
hearing board.
odds?
No, they're not related.
What am I missing?
Well, you're missing that they're not related.
That's a change of a
An
non-conforming use
expansion of
versus
a
an
non-conforming
alteration.
use is not necessarily an alteration.
A change is a literal change in
Right,
the use.
right, I'm getting that.
Yes, that they're not related.
I think her question is, should that also require a special exception application? Is that what you're asking?
Or if it does, how about it, or something similar to,
I read it and it says that it requires it is weirdly written. I don't
It
know
is.
when this was done.
2008.
April 18th.
Previous non-conforming may be continued by new owner, notwithstanding the foregoing, should the new owner wish to change the use of the lot, building, or structure to another non-conforming use. The owner shall apply to the zoning hearing board for approval of the change of the use, but it doesn't talk about what that application looks like. So we probably should amend that to say
It's a-
special exception, exemptions.
I-
I'm gonna put that in, and then you're clean, you're done.
If you want, but I think we should talk about that further because it's distinct from what the original intent was of the board at that time. So I think we should at least consider.
Because they wanted it to be, what? They wanted it to be
It's under
Easier?
different, it's under different criteria. That's why, that's,
but there's no criteria listed.
but what I'm saying is, it's a general zoning hearing board application. They did have, and still do have, broad discretion on matters of change and interpretation, which are, what they traditionally do, because they never really held special exception use hearings except for the nonconformities. I believe the legislative intent was they treated,
Is this,
changing from one non-conforming use to another to be distinct from a special exception, since it presumably.
this is when you have a non-conforming building that is a general purpose building and you have different tenants in it. I think that's why this is here, because I know
Yes.
there's been cases of this where you have a building, it's very clearly a commercial building, but it's in an R1 zone and it's got
Correct.
a doctor's office in it, and then someone wants to turn it into the I don't know, a chiropractic office.
Right, that's why it's
They wanted to go through this because there's no site, there's no land development, that's the
correct,
difference, right? So you wouldn't go through that makes sense, you wouldn't go through a land development process if you're not changing the building. You just go through, which is what we just put together.
correct.
You would go through a basic application to say, all right, it's no longer gonna be a doctor's office, it's gonna be a restaurant, whatever it's gonna be. There's gonna be zero land development that's gonna happen with this, so it does make sense.
The only
It would be a-
reason, it's an added public hearing on top of, so if you go from one permitted use to another, you don't need to go to the zoning hearing board, but if you go from an existing nonconformity to another, that's,
Non-conforming.
permitted in the general character of that neighborhood, then you
They
need
can
that
say
hearing.
yes.
It's different than, because you're not producing the distinct impact that you might have with changing your, motel to a warehouse, for example.
Well, I mean,
That
it
would
makes sense,
be
it makes sense
special
you would
exception.
not have a full site plan development, because you're not changing any of the,
Well, because if you change it to a conforming use, then you have to go through land development again.
so then if you did change its use, then you're not conforming, and then if you want to grow it, you go back to the previous point, where now you're growing it, changing it, so you have to submit a whole new
And
plan.
then you have to go through the special exception. if you
Correct.
want.
So if you want to change its use, not change the building whatsoever, you go through one process where you submit an application to the zoning hearing board. But if you want to change, grow it, change, go up, whatever, you have to submit this. That makes sense. And it shouldn't be the same, shouldn't be special.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense, thank you.
Any others?
You, just before we're finished. So Julia, you're going to look, just so I feel comfortable.
I'm going to research the language that is located in section 27-705. Specifically items 705A, 705B, and 705C, where it references the Board of Supervisors and or the Planning Commission. And I will add in there language regarding the zoning hearing board and special exceptions.
Yeah, so it's both, also when it says the words conditional use, so the very first part says on any site plan connected with a conditional use or special exception, by the township or supervisors, or, you know, whatever, it's gonna be a little bit,
Correct.
there's not too many places, I think
Yeah.
I see like 3 or 4.
I'm gonna entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Motion by Mr. Loveenheim, do I hear a second?
Second,
Second, Mr. Albert, questions? Favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll entertain a resolution or a motion to adopt draft ordinance 254, providing for special exception criteria.
Motion to consider.
By Mr. Loveenheim,
second,
second, Mr. Albert, question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
aye,
Okay. Public comment. Brett?
Had a long conversation with Brian Boyer at PennDOT today, and the result of, well, I've had the question, whose responsibility is this intersection?
Yeah.
I've heard different people say different things. The
Which intersection?
the 209 Gapview Drive. And who's responsible for it, I've heard various things. It's the township. It's a township issue, or it's a PennDOT issue. And Brian pushed back, said this intersection is a township issue. And he also, and I've heard people from in our organization say this is a PennDOT issue. So that's one thing. I'm looking forward to having John speak with Mr. Boyer to get our point of view. One of my points was that it's not legal for cars to pass on the right in an intersection. And I gave John the PennDOT statute that requires that. Mr. Boyer does not think that's the case. And I said, well, the people are leaving the road entirely. They're coming outside of the white line at that intersection. They're driving towards the stop sign on Gapview Drive. They're totally off the road. And he's saying, well, that's a township issue. And I have to cite the law with him. Which he doesn't agree with. He says it happens all day long. People pass on the right end intersections. And I don't disagree with that. However, it's not legal.
Right, under the vehicle code.
Yeah, and we just gave the vehicle to John. So anyway, it's an ongoing thing. I think we're talking about a turning lane in the center of 209 there. Which would alleviate the situation. The problem is the beer distributor probably not gonna put the parking lot. On the other side of the road, it's probably okay if they widen the road to allow a single lane in the center.
Sure.
And so it's really back and forth. And I guess that's it. I'm trying to explain.
Yeah.
Brett, I've got a quick follow-up, if I may.
please.
I'm not familiar with the Brian Boyer.
Okay.
Do you mean Brian DeCino, or is it definitely?
No, it's Brian Boyer.
Yeah.
And he's the head of, he's a PennDOT.
It's District 5 maintenance, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How can it be a township issue when it's a PennDOT right of way?
Well, there's a couple of reasons that it could be, but it's not entirely either, right? That's the problem. Is it requires partnership because signalization, all that stuff, the extra lane, that'd be them. We talked about signage, but they won't let us, install signage because it's, their
Yeah,
prerogative.
to follow up with kind of everybody to make sure that we're all working on the same page for this. This is in our upcoming hazmat mitigation plan because it has been identified as a dangerous intersection. If you're free tomorrow, that hearing is up at Tannersville at 6 o'clock. Please come. The second thing with this, though, I've got a pending call to Brian DeCino. The board has tasked me with reaching out to Brian to find out what happens if we initiate a traffic study in that area. How long it would take, just getting more information on that. I'm still waiting to hear back from him. And we are definitely trying to afford more information.
The other thing I might ask us to consider is asking PSP to kind of observe over there from the old parking lot that exists at the former pizza place. I feel like that would be pretty good vantage point to observe that, just
the
to
whole stretch
kind
is
of
awful, I mean,
get an idea.
I know, I'm there every day, multiple times a
Right.
day, and I don't think there's anywhere else where there's more people that go through a red light than that intersection.
Right.
Right before it. I mean, that is like, every day I count at least 2 cars.
Well, and also
That
there's
go
like
through that as a red light.
significant holes in the road where people are kind of bouncing, it kills their suspension, which I think is remarkable. They have to go around someone.
Yeah, I
With
agree.
that
It's a mess.
urgency.
The developer has disappeared, the prospective developer for the pizza place lot. Is he?
No, the developer for the pizza place actually wants to give the right of way from Gapview Drive that would connect with Buttermilk Falls Road to the township, to give it to us. And so that we can alleviate the problem. And what we have to do is apply for a multimodal grant to build that section of the road. All of this information is probably good for us applying for a grant because it's been shown that it's unsafe. But it would take a couple of years if it started now. And I think what we're all looking for is just something in the interim that can at least close off that ability to go around over the sewer there and get around the cars that are legally in the lane, right? That's the first thing.
I mean, the reality is from Buttermilk Falls to 447 is the whole thing is a problem area. And I think I heard through the grapevine that Petrus got some money. Is that
We
right?
announced it in our last meeting.
He did? Oh, we did?
We did.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm losing my mind too. So that's good. So at least from, you know, some of that's gonna get finally finalized. It doesn't fix down there. I wish it was fixed all the way to Buttermilk Falls. It would make sense.
Yeah, Mr. Ward was saying that lot could be just adopted by the township.
By eminent domain.
Yeah, eminent domain, whatever. I know that eminent domain is a subject with you guys.
It's a real dirty word in Monroe County.
Apparently, he's discussed that within PennDOT, and he's
Yes.
aware, he's getting involved. I know that if we put a development in there, it's gonna restrict 209 traffic. They have to drive through a strip mall to get to the light at Buttermilk.
Right.
And what else was I gonna say? Oh, the payment. I said, well, who pays for the traffic study? And he says that's the township expense.
Correct.
And, but the mitigation would be PennDOT expense.
But then they require us to file the TE 160, I think it is, and then take over the signal. So we would then pay for that just as we do the other signals in the township. We
Right.
pay the electric bill on those.
The second signal's not gonna happen, but it's potential that they could widen 209 at that point. Accommodate
Yeah.
center turning lane.
That's the first I've heard of them kicking that around, so that's interesting.
I'm gonna have a meeting tomorrow with his people. I'm gonna try to get he and put on together to talk about it. And I just wanted to reference the state law, which he doesn't agree with. He says you can pass in an intersection. I'm sorry, it's not a state, it's against the law. That's the thing. And I quoted the statute there. And so that's me and I'll shut up. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Brett. Any other comments?
I think what we should also ask is for enforcement there from the state police. Because Michael's pointed out, so many people just fly through the red light there. When I pull out from Buttermilk, I always, pause because I look both ways. I don't know what's gonna happen. And what you're talking about people cutting around, traffic through the, I guess it would be the right of way and going over that sewer that's there and
Right.
cutting around. If we had enforcement there,
It's the same.
that seems to be something that would be a first step.
Yeah, the sewage is not a right of way.
No, but if there's a sewer there, I'm
Right, I
saying,
know.
you can't go over that. and
Yeah.
Continue.
Jersey barrier, that'll solve it.
We-
And the state police, I mean, honestly, it's a nice thought, but they have far bigger fish to fry here in Monroe
The
County
state
than
police told me
our
that,
Gaffney Drive.
the state police told me personally, that's the most dangerous intersection in the county.
Yeah,
They're aware of it. I saw a car there, state police there the other day. Stopping somebody in front of the beer place. I don't know. Yeah, they're very busy and the PennDOT guy said, well, talk to your local constabulary. We don't have one. You're just the state police, so
right.
they're kind of aware.
Yeah.
It's a huge bureaucracy and I'm willing away, grinding my.
That's right.
Well, we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Christine.
We're also anxious to see what happens with Green Light Go, which after, what is it, 6 or 7 years of stop, is finally gonna get going, where all those lights are supposed to be timed from 80 all the way to Bushkill. And how much difference that might make, we don't know, but.
The green light go sensor at Buttermilk Falls, the green light go sensor
Yes,
on the top of the pole is not over where the car is stopped. There's a considerable setback as you're approaching 209 from Buttermilk. And you stop here and the green light go sensor is like, can't see the car, I guarantee you, but maybe.
I think it can, it just
Yeah.
doesn't want to.
It was recently,
Right,
I
it's
asked
not
that question, it
activated.
was aligned to that.
okay, interesting. Okay, so,
That's okay. My questions involve John Tressler too, and it's about the water gap wellness accessory buildings. John, in the big long letter that you sent them with all of your questions, one of the questions was, what are you? Right, are you?
That's correct.
In their response, they identified themselves as a resort, conference center, and inn. So, the first question is that, and now I'll go back to the supervisors. If they're doing business and we don't know what they are, how is it that they do business? Like, isn't there some kind of requirement when somebody opens a business in the township to say, hey, we're opening a fill in the blank business? Like, I'm opening a smoke shop, I'm opening a hotel, I'm opening a restaurant.
You need,
they have their permitting as an inn, I believe, as the existing facility.
Has the zoning officer ever gone in there to confirm that's what they claim?
So to be clear, if you mean at the original time that the permitting was done, the inspections were completed, including the construction, not the building codes officer as well. But we haven't done an inspection on that permit since.
Sir, may I have your name, please?
But
She wants your name, Terry, if you
I'm
can.
sorry,
Julia wants the spelling of your name.
Terrence Fagan.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So since the original inspection, which we recall was done arriving on a Friday, being told that's not convenient and returning the following week. And then in testimony here in the room, finding from the former head of nursing that he changed everything over the weekend to change it from what it is to what they want it to be. So since that time, we have gone up to the to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And actually, we've been on the same side on that one. And
Yep.
we won in every single courtroom. So they lost at the level of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, who refused to take it.
Right.
And during all of those conclusions from the different judges, was it ever an idea to actually send a zoning officer or request a zoning officer return to see what's actually happening there?
I don't think we had any formal complaint to that effect after that occurred. So we generally would go based upon
what,
that.
I'll ask in a different way. What does the township, what does the township need to enable a zoning officer to go and look at something to see if it's in compliance? I mean, I think.
I mean, they can go, I guess what I'm saying is they haven't had an inspection that would have considered the withdrawal of their certificate of occupancy.
Would you have to have a complaint to go
Yes.
inspect?
So where do you have to complain? Because I thought I have some police reports, complaints that I've made about their patients going on my property, knocking on my door, scaring my children at all times of the day. They were flying drones, which I believe I emailed you both about at the time. I've made noise complaints, light complaints, and I'm always told to refer back to my township, except that all this is taking place on the Smithfield side.
Well, you can complain to Smithfield. I don't think we've gotten any complaints.
I mean, should I have the
You
police
haven't gotten
reports
any
forwarded to you, because I do call the troopers and the police, and they have gone up there and spoken to them.
Well,
About
We have a brand new zoning officer as of January first. I
Right.
mean, if there's a concern that. I know what the concern is, right? It's,
That's not the.
it's a drug and rehab center, right? That they're, and my understanding, and I don't, again, if there was a way to prove it, great. That they're transporting people somewhere else. They're doing all the things that are defined as drug and rehab centers somewhere else. And they're coming there and they're just sleeping there. And it's like this gray area. I'm just saying my understanding. And it's, they're working around the law to say, nope, they're just sleeping here. That's all they're doing. So the question is, if they're administering drugs there, if they're administering these things there, then they're working against the law. If they legitimately are, I'm not saying I agree with it, that it should be allowed, but if they're legitimately taking someone else, doing all the medical stuff, and they're just saying, this is where you stay, and this is where you sleep, and we have activities, I don't know what can be done.
Correct.
But if you're saying you actually think that there's drugs being administered and this sort of stuff, then yeah, well, I mean.
It's still, the car's still going up there, so it's unmarked now.
Right, but that in and of itself is not related to the zoning ordinance in any way.
If it's an inn, should the public be allowed to stay up there?
Can I call up and stay there next week?
I don't know what the rule, I don't know what this.
Based on the
That's
definition of your ordinance.
So that's not,
Hold on one second, I'm sorry, ma'am, for the record, may we have your name as well?
Yes, Nefertiti Campbell.
that's not defined in the ordinance though.
If they're considering themselves a resort or an inn, they must be paying hotel tax. And if they're not paying hotel tax.
Correct.
Correct.
They'll be in violation
Right.
of it. So
Correct.
Is there a way that you can,
The-
that somebody can find out?
The treasurer's office collects the hotel, the occupancy tax.
Right,
And the treasurer's office, with that program is audited by the county controller's office. So they are the ones that administer that program.
so how can somebody tell them to, I mean, because I would think if they're in violation of that, they would have some pretty severe fines.
Not only that, but they could potentially be prosecuted by the district attorney's office.
Right,
Which I know they've gone after folks for that before upon the result of an audit, but we're not aware of any audit that's been made into whether or not they were paying. So
Is that public information if they're paying hotel tax?
I've looked and I can't find any public information on that.
no, they don't,
Maybe just research.
they generally do not publicize those audits. I'm not sure if they're subject.
Definition of an inn, a combination of eating, lodging, and recreational enterprises for extended stay vacations on land area of 10 acres or more, but not including any enterprise where more than 50 lodging accommodations are provided. That approximately has at least 65.
Correct. We literally, you missed us at the last meeting. We're talking about these definitions. If you go to resort, it's basically the same thing, but more people, so they can be a resort.
But are they?
Well, in resorts,
As an inn, not as a resort.
in resort, it is specified for public guests. In inns, it is talked about extended stay vacations. So is a public guest any member of the public?
Yes,
I mean,
think
it's
so. I mean-
like me, that I could go,
you could,
So
It's a beautiful.
You
and I
could
can pay with a
theoretically,
credit card, not Blue Cross Blue Shield.
you could make a reservation there and stay there. Of course, they could say they're
Correct.
full. But ma'am, going back to what you're saying, we now have, which we didn't have originally, a noise ordinance too, which is if you're hearing a lot of noise from there, you can complain on that too.
How even harder to
What do you know that
What are
now?
your hours of the noise ordinance?
I think it's 70 decibels,
No.
is it?
No, the time.
60 I think 65 decibels during the day, and I think it's 55 at night, from your property line.
Okay, but what is the time frame for that? What are the hours?
When does night start?
I think it starts at 10.
I think it's 10.
10
Yeah.
PM, but what is the earliest they can commence noise?
I think it's eight.
Could be 8, I don't know.
7 or 8 AM.
All right, so
I'll
now
have
I
to,
will email you with a formal complaint because for the last
Yeah,
few weeks at 7
complaint.
o'clock, they start doing some kind of work. up
And
there.
then we have to go out with a sound meter and we have to see
You
it.
should look,
It's true.
The sound ordinance is very hard to enforce, although maybe we have a new zoning, so maybe it'll happen. I'm just saying, and if it's basic work stuff, it's exempt, if it's.
Every township that I've talked to has said noise ordinances are a joke.
I-
They're absolutely
well, everybody
unenforceable.
tries, but
Good
it's-
effing
They
luck
are,
is
but
what
we
I
have
was
to
told.
make complaints, right?
Well,
If we don't
yeah.
make complaints, then it's, nothing is
Well,
happening.
you're procedures have changed significantly here since the original land use case was decided. So I think it's more effective
Julia,
now.
can we ask Julia to reach out to whoever collects the hotel tax to confirm that they're
Teresa
collecting,
Johnson.
Yes,
to confirm that they're collecting with the view that we have had our complaint, which has just been here in public, that this is not being used, or this is being used for something other than hotel, even though they say it's a hotel, and if it's a hotel, they should be collecting this tax, and we wanna check if they are.
Yes, because I mean, honestly, for me, my main concern is that
Right.
this building of an additional recreation center is more beds being placed in there. And then how do we get someone to go out there and verify that that's the case or not the case, if the zoning officer can just.
I had heard, and I can't confirm this, that, they had bought one or two of those houses on Wolf Hollow to use as additional dormitories, but that's just hearsay, I
They
don't
don't
know.
purchase other property, what they're being used for, I really don't know. But that's one of my concerns. There's gonna be more bodies there, more issues that I have to deal with, and it's frustrating to constantly call and have people come out, but they don't ever come to us, they'll just go directly there. And I'm not getting a resolution, and I'm trying to have reports written, and it's really frustrating, because they know who I am, and they're like, oh, it's the people next door, and I feel like there's something going on there.
Well,
So
I
I
think we
just
can
need to
check
know
on
what's
the,
behind
I think we can check if they're paying their hotel tax.
Right.
If they are, I don't know what the next step would be. If they're not, then there's potential avenues. we
And
can
how do we guarantee that that recreational building, this non-conforming use that they're looking for, or additional buildings they're looking for, isn't that? Is someone going to inspect that? If it's
100%.
allowed?
100%.
How about
When, though? When, like,
can someone inspect the original building now that the previous zoning officer showed a stunning lack of interest for 5 years? Maybe the new zoning officer could pop by and just for peace of mind, just take a look around and see if it's doing more than just people hanging out in their rooms.
I mean,
Sure.
you can't get through the gate, right? Like, in a normal hotel, you can drive up.
You can have
Park,
private
go in.
hotels.
There are some places that are private, but I can't go up to that gate and say, I wanna stay there. Because they know I live next door and they don't believe for a second that I wanna stay there, but they're not gonna let me through that gate. But they don't have a right to prevent me from going there if I do, but if I don't wanna sleep with my husband tonight and I wanna sleep in a fancy bed.
Yeah.
But I can't because they won't let me through there, so I don't think I'm the public.
Actually, they do have a right to refuse your service. They can
They do.
say, no, you're not allowed to stay here.
But what?
Most of
Because
what
anyone
the,
can say that.
the
Because
reality is,
that's the
But
right of
normally an inn is gonna turn someone away, but they're gonna turn me away because they know that I.
We all know that
Right,
they're not operating a normal inn. The question is, are they breaking the law?
right, and to that end, it has almost nothing to do with zoning. It deals with licensure from DDAP. It deals with, which they don't have, by the way, because they would have had to have secured that in order to get their conditional use, which they didn't. And it also would deal with human services, and then you deal with insurance or not insurance, however they would choose, but we don't regulate any of those things.
But
That's,
you do regulate the zoning, correct? And that's what I'm talking about.
yes, no, I agree, but I'm just, right, but
That's
just
my
to be clear though, we don't enforce who's allowed in, who's not allowed in.
But you enforce the zoning, and
Yeah.
before,
Correct.
they said they weren't using it that way, and they were, and it was common knowledge. So who has been back to determine?
But
if
what
that's
I'm saying is if you're using it and you're saying, I'm gonna take certain people that are a certain way, but the only thing that they're doing here is sleeping here, then that's sort of a hotel, is it not? Is it, or an inn, or whatever?
It's not one that we like, but it's not necessarily illegal.
I mean, it is unusual.
But it's not
for
necessarily
pharmacists to deliver
legal either,
medication.
and you don't know that.
Well, we're
don't
gonna
know
check if they're
it
paying,
is.
we're gonna check if they're paying hotel tax, because they would have to be doing that.
Right,
Are they?
and that's great, but it seems like a little too late. You said we've had a formal.
The district
complaint
attorney's office
tonight.
came here soliciting information on that at the time that people were testifying.
Right, no,
That
I'm
is our last
talking about,
contact.
I'm talking about Michael's comment tonight about checking if there's been a formal complaint here tonight, so that is
Sure.
reason for Julia to check into whether or not they're paying
Well,
hotel
that's
tax.
easy enough. We don't need a complaint for that, but what we do
we've
need,
complained a lot about this and nothing's been done, and then tonight, thank you, Michael, for a little bit, but
I think
why
it's-
tonight and not last month or the month before, or the month before that, when we've been here saying the same exact thing?
I beg your pardon, I haven't heard complaints about this in a long time.
Are
I've
you
heard
kidding me?
complaints, wait a minute, I've heard complaints,
You were at
You-
the planning commission
you
last
and
time
others.
I was here.
I've heard complaints from you and others about the one that they're planning to build,
Oh.
but this one,
Road that they've built, we've talked about we've talked about all of
which?
this,
All right.
pull the tape.
hold on, hold
tell
on.
me what you're talking about. Because I haven't heard complaints about this place in a while, not that they shouldn't be, people shouldn't be complaining, but where are the complaints? Fill out a complaint form, so we can investigate.
And is.
We're
it
just-
sitting here
all he's saying-
in a
all he's-
public meeting? Like, does that not count
No,
as a complaint?
we want, it counts, but we want a formal record of it.
It's just that,
You have a formal record, you
No.
have meeting minutes and you have
That's,
video.
that doesn't, no, that's not sufficient for a complaint.
we're just saying, this is the process that we've told our new zoning hearing board. And he will take up every single complaint form. That's why we added it a year ago. But in this case, that's for the zoning hearing board. I'm still asking, still asking Julia to look into that, because that's not something that he would necessarily do.
Correct.
So that's
And for
why,
the record, I, on November 11th of last year, sent an email to all three of you complaining about the guy in the middle of winter walking without a shirt barefoot down the street with a car tailing him for over half an hour, going up and down our street, screaming and yelling, and them trying to persuade him to come back in a second car coming and talking to them as well. And I sent that to you, and I did get a response from a few of you, and I appreciate it. But, so yes, you have had
No,
complaints.
understood, but
And-
we're making a
and it was
distinction.
Dismissed, essentially telling us to tell our own borough to close the road, which as supervisors, you know, we can't do after 100 years of an open road. So it's essentially, and in your own website, Smithfield Township Water Gap Wellness Accessory Buildings Land Development Plan, you describe it on the website as the Water Gap Wellness Mental Health and Recovery Center.
That's
Yes,
on your
it's
website.
on there right
now.
I
On their
don't see it,
website.
I don't see it in there anywhere.
Your website.
We have the information that is from the application.
oh,
We don't make any warranty that what they're saying is accurate. We don't rely upon that, we rely upon the information conveyed to our professionals that review them. Which is why you get those letters from Ron and John that identify issues or other comments with that land development, but it doesn't mean that anything else falls on deaf
So I
ears.
can apply as one thing and just to my liking, change my name to an inn and then to a resort if inn isn't working anymore. Is that how it works?
No,
Seems.
it never, Eric, you can say that with all due respect, it didn't get the approval to change its form. That's why it does some of the things that it does, because it doesn't know what to do. Because it's stuck in that area where it has to comply with all the hotel laws, but isn't a rehabilitation center.
I think they know exactly what to do. It seems to be working.
And it's been 5 years next month, and that's 18 million a year minimum times 18 times 5. You're looking at 90 million. That they paid the past 5 years estimate. So they're doing something, right?
We're here asking for your help, guys. We're not here.
I understand, my answer is, I'm trying to think of how one helps. There's other times when people in this township have skirted the laws and pisses me off. But I don't know if there's a solution to it. I mean, we've got a freaking quarry in the middle of a commercial district pisses me
Right.
off every time I go by there. That Riccobono has put in there because he got around the law by saying, I'm gonna do some site plan development, because he worked around it. Oh, I'm doing a site plan, and now he has it. I mean, that's why we have a quarry in the middle of a commercial zone. Sucks. I mean, I wasn't around when that happened, but
No, none of us were.
that is what it is. I don't know what the answer is. One thing, this probably won't be very helpful. I'm just saying, my understanding is even if they're crazy, if they're walking down the streets, if they're being terrible, if all they're doing is sleeping there, I don't know that there's any teeth that the township has. If someone has a suggestion on what we could do, okay. But if the zoning officer goes there and all they're doing is sleeping there, I'd be very surprised if they're administering drugs, because they don't have a permit to do that either. And they have another spot. They have another spot with.
They were administering drugs without a permit prior to this whole legal process.
Well,
So why would they stop?
and then I don't know if we were allowed to go in with a warrant. Zoning officers typically don't go inside buildings. They
Yeah,
go on
guys,
the outside
I'm really
property.
sorry, who just spoke?
Jack Schumacher.
Thank you, sir.
I don't know the answer to that. Can a zoning officer mandate to go inside without a warrant?
If the owner does not want them to go on the property, they need to get an administrative warrant.
Why is that?
How difficult is that?
Because you can't.
The zoning officer has to get a warrant application, just like the police do, and file it with the local magisterial district judge. And see if the magisterial district judge will then issue the warrant.
Well, it's
And I think it's good
convenient
for
because
2
he's
days,
downstairs.
2 days, 3 days, something like that.
It's convenient because he's downstairs.
Yeah, well, I heard that line.
We're just here to ask for your help.
No,
Yeah.
and that's
And you and I have had perfectly frank conversations about this over the years. I think that we can appreciate we're meeting in the middle here by hashing this out here, but there's a couple of roads that we can take, some things that we're going to take tonight, but we'll go from there.
Now, let's wait.
Well, let's do this too. We have a list
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
priorities for the zoning officer, and he does have a backlog. Of stuff that hasn't been dealt with when the terms of his employment were focused, or of the company's contractual obligation is focused on the time needed to do regular things. So there is extra right now to take care of some of that backlog. That's sort of a reference to some of the complaints I heard at the planning commission meeting. However, Julia, I mean, I don't know if we have to make motions, right? Actually, we're not allowed to make any action on
We don't have,
comments. It's no action, but you can have a conversation with Matt about this, because he probably doesn't know that it's an issue. And maybe he has suggestions on the way forward too.
Yeah, please appreciate, we all realize there's a genuine need for these type of facilities. However, going through the court system, and you were on our side.
Yeah.
You didn't feel that they were capable and were honest, they perjured themselves. So why would we think they'd stop in terms of that? So we're here to say, hey, guys, we can't enforce it in the Delaware Water Gap. Give us whatever help you can to try to make it right.
sure, and
That's all we're asking.
no, I think we all agree with that.
Jack, is there any way you can restrict the road? Weight limits, anything?
First, realistically, we don't have people available to enforce it, even if we had weight limits, but the traffic is unbelievable. I mean, I've walked the dog and jump off the road because they're flying on their shifts to get to work on time at 11 o'clock.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we have trucks coming up the
But
road.
wouldn't Delaware Water Gap PD deal with
We have a part-time
disturbances?
police force in Delaware Water Gap of one
guy.
at the moment.
Mhm,
Okay, and sometimes they'll hide, in the intersection there, and
sure.
because they come flying down, they go right through the stop sign on Mountain Road.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Nat, she's got 3 little kids that are right at the intersection. And we can't drive in there because it's not open to the public. And if we define this as an inn, you and I should be able to drive in there and stay there tonight.
Well, we'll double check what the permit specifically says. I don't remember. I think it may be an inn, but it also could be one of the other.
There may be some verbiage there that we can use to deny the use. And maybe they can make it a senior citizen facility or something else that would be good for everybody. We could be their
No
friend.
money in that.
If they're not making money, they're not gonna change, but
Yeah,
I understand.
we're gonna make a good faith effort based on this discussion, and we'll be in
Thank you.
contact.
That's all we ask. Thank you.
Tara?
I have
two complaints. One, it happened last week, actually, after I got home from the EAC meeting. At about 10:30 at night, my husband and I heard, we thought were gunshots, but actually were fireworks. We could see them out our bathroom window that they were being set off from the menacing soccer fields. So I was going to call and let Alex know that as conservation and rec director, something needs to be done with the parks at night to make sure that they're closed off. So people are not setting off fireworks, you know, at 10:30 at night on a weeknight. The other thing happened actually this afternoon. We were out in our driveways and there were drones flying. I don't know if they came from the bike park or where they came from, but we could hear them, you could see them. But there was a drone that was down in our neighborhood that doesn't belong to our neighbors.
That's all preempted by FAA, is it not?
Drones.
Yeah.
There's a limit on airspace.
I don't know what the,
But it's a smaller, it was like a personal use drone, they were
Yeah.
smaller, and the bike park is right there, so I don't know if people are going in the bike park and flying drones, but.
As long as it's under 500 feet, I think it's legal.
I mean, we could make drone flying,
500 feet of what?
hold on,
500 feet of what?
Altitude.
Oh,
ATL.
altitude.
in our own park.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, we could put together, we could say that drones are not allowed in our parks, can we not? I know we can't regulate airspace, but we can say you can't
Launch them.
launch them from the
I
parks.
mean, there's a whole neighborhood back there, and it was right next to my mom's house.
No, I understand. I think it makes sense to have drones. I mean, then you have soccer games and what constitutes, you know, someone wants to take a little shot
To
at
be
a soccer
clear,
match.
we've had like hobbyist, not drones, but like remote controls, plane models and things like that.
But they were made out,
No.
they were outlawed in the federal, they used to be a federal,
In the park.
River Road, they
Yeah.
closed it because of, there was some law that was passed.
Incompatible with
That's how they-
with the national park.
Oh, okay. Well, I remembered that, but
Yeah.
I haven't heard of
We,
anything.
we could say something about no launching of drones at the park. It'll probably get away with that, even though we can't regulate the
Well,
airspace.
perhaps, Ron, that's something that we can research after tomorrow.
Yeah, but we have fish to fry with
Yeah.
matter, that's. I won't say more important, but that's on our plate right now.
Yeah.
We gotta deal with.
Sure.
We can look at making that some sort of regulation.
Consideration,
I think it makes
sure.
sense.
Thank you.
Doesn't necessarily mean someone won't go and do it and go over
Firearms
it, but,
Shot it down.
well, if they're over your property, you can do that.
I don't know if you're actually gonna have a good time
I
with
mean, that's
that.
a serious question.
You can shut down someone, if someone has it's within a certain number of feet of your property.
Well,
you can
I was gonna
shoot that.
say, it's like, it's much more, I was gonna say, it's much more nuanced than just, oh, it's over my property. People have
You can't.
Really?
been prosecuted for that. Someone else's property.
Thousands around.
You were in Iraq.
I thought you could if it was like under 500 feet on your property, over your property.
I don't know what the specific regs are, but they're very nuanced, like you can't just.
Not our law, you should look it up, I'm not putting down.
I was gonna say, that's federal, we can't just.
Well, it's gonna come down, there's houses.
Correct,
All right, sorry,
and we're preempted by the Commonwealth and
this isn't
regulated,
taped or anything, right?
but we're preempted by the
Plexus.
Commonwealth from imposing
Just a question.
firearm regulations.
It's not a township law, I can say that, right?
Correct,
There you go.
right.
I think
To my,
we're in my ear,
to Michael's
coming
point
down.
about the quarry, I've noticed that,
That should
and
be
I've heard the
sales.
term
Yeah,
used in a lot of our meetings, including, it was referenced again tonight. When we're considering a developer's request, there's a bias towards the developer. And it's sort of a
Well,
statement.
there's a bias towards the property owner,
correct.
Okay, right.
In Pennsylvania laws.
right? So it's your,
Right.
same as, not a developer, but if it's your property that we're talking about, on your property, there's gonna be a bias to the person that owns that property. If
Correct.
there was no zoning laws, you could do whatever you want with it.
Right.
And I think that, so it probably came from those times, right? Bias towards the developer, but with more and more laws. If Rick Bono, if he was more forthcoming with what he wanted to do and the township could have known. Wouldn't there be a point to being a little less biased towards the
The bias is not set necessarily in our rules are essentially tied to the state rules.
Right, okay.
So the presumption. That's why everything is presumed permitted, and when the zoning hearing board has to interpret a statute, the municipality's planning code. That dictates that they have to interpret it in the most favorable sense toward the developer.
I mean,
So-
that case was before we had steep slope rules, I
Right.
believe. So you wouldn't be able to say, I'm developing it and I'm gonna cut down a mountain.
You're
to
also
do it.
supposed to
Can't
be
do it.
able to, you're able to limit, one, the length of the approval, to the standard length, but also you can limit site prep, right?
Now you
With
can, I don't know
moderate
why,
projects-
yeah, I'd love to.
Well, my understanding with that approval was that they didn't set any,
Timeframe on it.
yeah, no milestones were set as far as site preparation, so that's still in site preparation, even though.
No, but how many years? 40 years?
Yeah,
Long time.
because they have a approval.
It's one of the first questions when I
Yeah.
came here, I was
I
like,
remember.
wait, this is commercial, why
Because
is
they-
there a quarry?
Because they have a land development plan approval for it's retail.
All right, okay, 720, anything else?
Charlie,
Yes, I have, a complaint. I live on, 2121 Sunrise Court, and there's a new construction next door. I've made numerous complaints to zoning, in reference to, I think our ordinance states that, permits need to be displayed. As of November 22nd, till now, there has not been one permit displayed.
It's true.
There's nothing. I've made several complaints. I've contacted, zoning. I've went to, my management company and they've made complaints. Nothing has been done. She's contacted the builder. She's, this, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
I contacted the zoning officer, made a complaint, and he said, remember, this is the zoning officer who's been on duty, 6 weeks.
Right.
And he made a promise that he would investigate it because there should be a permit that's been put up for this construction. And there are a few other things there.
I had actually
The
had a
slope
meeting
of the
with him on
backyard.
Thursday. I had a meeting with him on Thursday and he told me
Good.
that he would go out there. Well, it is now, Tuesday, and before I left, I went and I took pictures of the home and, there's still nothing.
sure, I mean, the turnaround's not gonna be that quick necessarily.
Okay, well, no, I mean, well, I understand that, but the turnaround, I mean, I have like
Just to give you an idea of what used to go on before this new zoning officer, I made a complaint, I think in October of last year about a carport that I thought was illegally built on Skyview Drive. I waited and waited and waited and finally looked in the list of what had been done and it was considered closed. But the address was wrong. So they never even went to the right address.
right.
So
Robert, I can tell you this, Robert, I went with Julia because we looked at some of the open complaints. So you have to tell us what the address is on that because that was 100% somebody's like porch.
it was
Not a carport.
514, I believe, Skyview, and he investigated
Yeah.
514, I don't know,
Is
beach
that what
something.
is that
Yeah.
what he made it in the
Yeah.
front?
So he never,
Well, no, I actually, to be honest with you, when I was on SBOA's board, I lodged a complaint and he said that it was, SBOA's problem. And if you'd like, I can forward you, that was
Yeah.
the old zoning officer. He goes, that's your issue.
We'll make sure that the zoning officer.
I'm just saying, but
He will
well, I mean, I have like some other things, so.
I've refiled
be
that
a
complaint,
building-
by the way.
I'm
So
sorry.
he- I've refiled that complaint, so he has to invest, the new zoning
Oh, okay.
officer has to invest.
Okay, all right.
Still needs a building.
Well, correct.
So now with that being said, like I said, it's been months and there's been nothing.
Oh, yeah, I should say, that's
Yeah.
probably the building code inspector,
Yeah.
not the zoning, but should have passed the law.
Um,
Because you don't have the zoning, but you have your building permit requirements.
Correct.
there's nothing, and I actually already reached.
I know,
out
I'm
to
just saying,
the-
it's not gonna be Matt that would do that. It's
Because you're in the
gonna be base.
PRD, so.
Base
Well,
engineering would be the
I
ones.
already
that have
did,
to
they
do it.
told me that it's zoning. I spoke to them, they went out there yesterday, and they were there for me
Julia,
yesterday.
that's
I
fine.
called.
Remember, we issued the building permit. So-
Yes, they said that's why I'm just like a little bit like,
Alright,
you know,
well,
perturbed
we'll
because that's
double-
nobody's giving me the right thing.
We'll double check, we're not trying to give you the runaround.
No, I understand, I'm just saying, I mean, it's been a long time.
Sure.
Also, I don't know who could control this, but they work all hours of the night. I have them on my video, they're only supposed to, SBOA set out special times. On Saturday, they were there 9, 10 o'clock, banging around, going to the side of, my house. I have my 82-year-old mother scared to death. I mean, am I supposed to call the police?
We
on
can,
them? I
we can
mean,
definitely look at that, but 100% the association would need to initiate their adversary process on that.
I looked into it with the association, the old association, not the new one, who said that we have no working hours, so they can't control it. That's what I got back.
Okay, because then when I spoke with, our, with the management company, she said that they were given, strict hours and they were to adhere to that. And I've like, you know, sent them the videos of, I mean, we're talking cutting trees down in the middle of the night. I mean, Robert, you know this. I mean, like, there's no need. And the people that are there, they're not good people. They're very sketchy people. They should be no business on his backyard, my backyard. They should not be even there at that time, and they've been warned. So that's concerning. Also, they've been trucking in loads upon loads of dirt, and the dirt smells. I mean, I don't know where, I mean, it's coming from, where they're getting it. Is there something that the township, I mean,
It's conservation district, but we should reference.
okay, I'm
we
just
can
saying,
follow that.
and I talked to, was it, Base Engineering, I spoke to him again today, regarding it, it just, I mean, everything this builder's doing, I mean, it's just very sketchy, let's just put it that way, and it's very concerning to me, then, and then like the pitch, like they couldn't dig, to put in the tank, so they didn't dig, so what they did was they just started bringing in truckloads and dumping it in, and that's how they know that there's a mound, and now it goes like this. What happens with that water? Like, who's responsible for, I mean, Robert can attest, we have a drainage problem where we live. I mean, it's not good. Now, where's all this, you know, water gonna go? It's gonna go in my basement. I know where it's gonna go because of these like numerous trucks, but when I call, nobody seems to, you know, oh, it's zoning officer. Oh, no, it's
Do you have the
the
address,
engineer.
Julia?
You know, I don't, I mean,
You said it's
I'm just as
21.
frustrated as you, Robert. I mean, because you see what's going on and
You
I
said
see
it's
what's going on.
2121 Sunrise Court?
That's my address.
Oh, that's your, what's the
Yeah,
address?
it's,
of-
I think it's
119.
21, yeah, 2119.
But I
Um,
believe that with a private home, you don't need any, John would correct me, stormwater approval, what is it?
We don't have a grading permit ordinance in this township, so no. You need a building permit, but the building permit that really doesn't. Show what's early in the morning.
Yeah.
Press to do yet.
No, all right,
So if I can leave.
Just as an aside,
you're good, Ron.
before I left the homeowners board, I suggested to them that since the declarations were made in 1989 and are extremely out of date, the only way that anything can be revised, for instance, working hours or grading or anything like that, is for somebody to go to the magistrate's court here, just file a complaint. And what'll happen is, because it's a complaint that's legal, then the board has the right to adjudicate it and find a solution. Other than that, they can't, because their hands are tied by the declarations that are so. So, and if you remember, that's how we did the Oakdale for chain question, because it was a legal matter, we could do that.
The township can get involved as it relates to, they still need a building permit.
Right.
And they need to follow the requirements related to the building permit, so we'll follow with Base Engineering and make sure that someone goes out, confirms, hey, they have a permit.
Okay, right, and that's the thing, like, do they have a permit? I mean, I did speak with, you know, Matt, and he did say they do have one, so they should have it displayed, but, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's been.
Yeah, I spoke to Base about grading, and they said that it was, for all they know, it's legal, and all they're really interested in is whether the house is
Code.
set right. They don't do anything with the
They
rest
don't
of
do
it.
anything.
Whether the houses are what?
Well, you know, you have to have certain grading against the house and
Oh,
things like that.
They'll backfill the foundation.
right,
Basically,
Correct.
that's all.
right.
Right, now another thing too is they brought, when they brought in the, all this dirt, they buried the trees probably up to like this much, like they
Mhm.
buried now.
Go
That,
back.
they'll die,
Go back.
that's, well, my husband does this, so I know, and, you know, he knows like, oh, and that's why I was concerned about where the soil's coming from, it's contaminated. These trees are going to fall on my house, and that's an issue. We're not talking like little trees. I mean, Robert could attest to this. They're not in good shape as it is, you know, so who do I go to then? Like, you know, if like it's not the township issue, is it, do I have to
Monroe
go?
County Conservation District.
Okay, okay, so I have to, okay.
And we've communicated with them a little bit about a clean fill ordinance. It's tough because from a state perspective, it's very difficult to enforce at the municipal level.
Right,
But the state has some movement on clean fill, because it's basically the stuff that's outlawed in New Jersey.
I just have like two more quick questions. Now, at the last meeting, I think, Mr. Karasak had said that, the zoning is like a different entity.
Yeah.
But a few months ago, you guys said that the supervisors, I would have to like go back, oversaw the zoning, so that was a little confusing to me.
So zoning is a chapter in our ordinances, so technically everywhere is related to everything outside of. Sorry. PRDs have their own zoning,
Correct,
but the township is the rest of the codes.
right.
Okay.
So I think I understand, but she's.
No,
it's
what
really
I'm,
less
yeah,
that-
what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
you're
say
talking
is, like,
about supervising who enforces.
right, now, for
Yeah.
instance, like the old supervisor from what, you know, from the last meeting, not the supervisor, excuse me, the zoning officer, he, I guess didn't do his job or whatever. I mean, I don't know, like the, you know, the logistics
Yeah,
of
we
it,
can't
but-
do the personnel laws, we can't get into the.
Correct, I mean.
I'll say it, he
well,
didn't.
Right, and Mr. Karasak kind of said it, like 6 months of no, this and that at the last, you know, meeting or whatever. But what I'm saying is, who is responsible for him? Like, who oversaw him? I mean, I was told that the supervisors oversaw him, but then when,
There is
The woman-
general supervisory authority over the person as an employee. We do not supervise their authority that is independent of us in the zoning code.
okay, because I was just confused
So
by,
we
I
can
know in the
say-
past, it said that the supervisors oversaw the zoning officer. But then when we were here the other day and the woman asked the question, he said, no, the supervisors don't, they're their own entity. So that's what was very
Correct.
confusing.
They have-
Lawyer, and that's it,
Okay.
that he
They-
does his job independently.
They have independent discretion on certain things,
Okay,
especially as it relates to investigations.
You can effectively say. You can say, go and do something. If he makes a different judgment and said it was fine, you can't really say, no, he's not fine. We're
Okay.
going to come down on it. What
Right,
you can do is eventually fire them,
Right,
which is what was
okay.
done.
right, okay, all right, and one more thing. Now, how many days does, Matt work? I think he just worked.
One.
One,
And that's
correct?
not true. He has,
That's not
he has
true.
office hours 1 day a week and
Okay.
he stated that incorrectly at the planning commission meeting. He stated it correctly. He's 1 office hours, but
that
he's
day is
working
dedicated to
that day
anyone
is
that wants to come
dedicated
in.
to be in here
Okay. Okay.
on Thursdays.
Just wanted to
He's here
clarify,
all
because I
day
was-
Thursday, but he's also going out, he's working from home, he's doing other things, and I don't know whether we're
During
collecting, we're paying an
inspections,
hourly
other days.
basis, I don't know what the
Okay.
rates are.
Thursday
So
is-
he's-
is
so
in
he's
office.
considered a full-time,
He's not full-time.
No, he's
Okay. So my question is, if we're.
we have a contract with Bureau Veritas there, so it's a 1099.
Okay, so, but if we're in such a, like, a terrible spot, which Mr. Karasak said, why would we hire someone not to work full-time to get us up to where we need to be?
It's not
I don't
necessarily,
understand.
it's a false question there, so.
No, I don't.
It- no,
It's
it
not
is, no.
full-time, it's the same as the engineer, where
Right.
he's not full-time employed by us, we contract him to do the work that we need him
Correct.
to do.
Well, no,
So the
we
reality is,
don't know.
yes,
You had a zoning officer that was here full-time,
correct.
and he didn't do his job.
So if we decided right now we wanted Matt to work 4,000 hours to get caught up, we could probably do that, and it would probably be
Right.
very expensive. So we have to weigh
And
that.
to be clear, he has been doing quite a bit of.
Oh, no, I met him, he's very nice, like I said, no, he's
Of
very nice,
that.
but I just didn't like, and,
Many
I
municipalities
was just
contract
confused
out
by
that
this.
authority. You
I
can
mean-
avoid some of the personnel issues when you hire a firm versus an individual.
Mhm. Okay.
So the funds are essentially the same. It still has to be borne out by the people that get the permits and whatnot. So our fee schedule is potentially gonna be adjusted depending on where we're at.
There are some other benefits in that his supervisor has chimed in on a few different things of our ordinance.
Correct.
So you actually have access, and they've talked about,
He
oh, if
can-
you need to do some,
He's
we have
conducted
the
reviews of our
ability to do
ordinances.
light
No,
stuff.
I
and so
understand what you're
there's-
saying, it's just as a resident, if we're in such a bad, like, situation, which was stated, at the last meeting by Mr. Karasak being 6 months and it's gonna take a long time, that was just concerning that we would have someone that wasn't like full-time to try to tackle it.
But I guess the reason why I said it's a false equivalency or a false question is because it's not that they are not working full-time. It's one, the load for that type of job is sometimes going to be quite a bit and sometimes it's going to be not.
Okay,
So the catch-up has been happening, but also it's been important for us that we get reviews on either incoming plans or ordinances, which I think if you can recall, were not always customary by the prior zoning officer. So that's one of the areas that we wanted improvement in. And then also there was a normal amount of complaints that were there. I mean, it's a very prolific thing, right? But where the backlog was in some of the administrative work after permit issuance or things like that. So there wasn't really a ton of permits like languishing, so much it was, we wanted to see clearer progress on enforcement.
okay,
With either seeking, people always think it's about going to court. A lot of times it's just about getting compliance from someone that doesn't know what the regulation is.
okay.
So it's been that, we have a different policy that results in people getting a letter to confirm the results of an investigation upon completion, different things like that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, and
Hold on.
Quick question.
No, I'm sorry.
Um,
On the same issue
Yes.
for a while.
Sorry, Karen.
Yeah,
To piggyback on what Charlene was saying, regarding basically who does a zoning officer report to? On your guys' website, under the zoning officer section, it says that the zoning officer serves at the pleasure of the board of supervisors.
correct. Means we can remove them at any time. It doesn't necessarily mean who they're reporting to. Like it's
So
not,
it doesn't mean that you guys wouldn't have oversight over the.
no, we
We have
like I
oversight to
said,
let them go as well,
Right.
or hire them or whatever,
Like-
but it doesn't mean that I can't tell, just like I can't tell him. You said that this site was no good, but I think it is good, you're wrong. I'm gonna prove it, right? Cause I'm not,
But if somebody's allegedly not doing their job for a significant period of time, why did we wait as long as we did in order to make that personnel decision to let them go? If you guys are ultimately the authority to say, we can let you go because you're not doing your job, what was the lag with, allowing, the culmination of all of these complaints being filed, permits not being submitted to the county, so they're not getting picked up in the interim tax audits and getting assessed,
we didn't know that,
I understand, well,
that part we didn't know till after.
no, I understand that,
Correct.
but there should have been oversight with that, but what I'm saying
right,
is,
but the county didn't tell us until that point.
the county wouldn't have known it, they wouldn't have picked it
Yes,
up in their audit.
They 100% know because they're the ones doing the assessment, not us.
But if the permits weren't.
If they
Permits
weren't
was what
filed.
triggers it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just saying that it's both sides, normally you'd get at least one permit over 4 years from.
Yeah,
a
but
township.
that's probably how they figured it out, but they don't pick up what properties have permits on them unless the permits are submitted and they pick them up and
Yeah, we
then.
understand that, that's.
Or if they're all
Yeah.
submitted,
But,
how many are missing?
yeah, but back to my point being.
Actually fairly caught up on that though, by the way. I talked to the county chief clerk and administrator the other day about that.
Well, that's fantastic. They still can't go back and retroactively collect
True.
tax revenue. The
No, they
commissioner's
can't.
office said they're not allowed.
They cannot.
I contacted them.
It depends on the context. I was gonna say it's nuanced, like, no, maybe not through the whole time, but they're going to make sure that it's right.
They said it's only going forward, but anyway, again. If you guys have, they serve at the pleasure of the board of supervisors, why did we wait so long if there were so many complaints and so many things that weren't happening?
It depends on your perspective. I mean, there were things being done, maybe not always to all of our liking, but
I mean, I built a new construction, I had a great
Yep.
experience with Ken.
Yep.
You know, he came out, he did all the inspections, my builder got paid, he was happy.
Yep.
But if there were other complaints, I think maybe it should have been assessed a little bit more swiftly.
it doesn't. We are not at liberty to say what type of disciplinary actions may or may not have been taken.
It was not like, it was like,
It's a process.
Correct.
you know that there's, I mean, you do HR, right?
Yeah.
That's your thing. Usually you go
So you
through
have to build a
processes
record?
to give phases and.
I understand.
And you would know that we
professional
wouldn't be,
discipline
right, you
Yeah.
would know that we wouldn't be able to say it in public though, pursuant to HR laws.
I'm not asking for that information.
Well, we're just, well, I'm just saying.
But you're just
there was a
asking for the
process.
results of that information, so we're also.
Why didn't we do
provide
it
that either.
faster?
The period of time.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if there was 3 years where permits weren't getting submitted. Well, 4, okay, 4 years where permits weren't getting submitted. And there were a lot of complaints and people were mad that things weren't getting done, and you have, you know, numerous bankers boxes of things that are having to get sorted through and all. It's just I don't know, I'm a little confused by the fact that it took so long to handle, but.
Have you
Can
considered?
I jump on your question? I think what Tara is saying is making me form the question in my mind is if he serves at the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors, why every year did he get reappointed? Every year, didn't you have the opportunity to not reappoint him without having to go through the whole HR thing?
You could go through that at any time. You still have to go through
So why
the
not?
HR.
If he's reappointed every year, then
That's the good break. You also
Every
need to,
year
you also need,
gets a.
so this is always a little bit complicated. You also have, we could have actually not appointed him
Right.
and continued to employ him. This is why the position's a little bit weird.
Correct.
And you also have to, if you don't wanna get sued and pay lots of money, you also have to demonstrate through proper processes, as I'm sure you know, that.
And there was nothing else he could have done, like,
Yeah, I mean,
You know, I find it funny
Yeah.
that we continue this
We don't have to-
roundabout
we don't have
questions
to keep
that we
going.
can't possibly answer because of the statutes, but.
We understand, you don't think we're doing a good job.
No, I don't think it's that. I think I mean, I don't know, maybe.
On this point, you didn't think that the supervisor did a
it's
good
a
job.
sore point with people.
Right, it's just,
Yeah.
I think, you know what it is, I think the residents just wanna know how did the ball get dropped for so many years? That's pretty much it. I don't think, I mean, I'm not saying it was you, but like, how did this all, like,
Gotcha.
how did it happen? You know, how did it get to this point? You know, for so many years, you know, and I'm sure you guys are sitting up there in the hot seats right now and you probably feel it.
I mean, if you don't think that we
That's not
haven't
my way.
considered it, if you don't think that we hadn't considered.
I mean, also, and
totality
also,
of
these
this.
are the 3 people that did eventually let him go. I mean, you
Right,
could also
no,
go and talk to
yeah.
past supervisors that protected him,
Right.
right?
I had former colleagues that wanted to do it immediately upon me getting here, but you know what? I wasn't willing to be a scapegoat just to remove somebody that somebody didn't like. If you'll recall, in an adjacent municipality, they had to settle a wrongful termination suit that dealt with the zoning officer for, I think it was somewhere near $250,000. So there's a lot of consideration that goes in here, but also it's not like nothing was being done. It's really easy to look and say, oh, nothing's been done, but it's not something that the regular average person would be involved in. If your project is getting done, great. If you make a complaint, awesome. We follow up on it, and that's what we've worked very, very hard to have a formal
Right, now.
process
What
on.
is happening now, like, I mean, it's water under the bridge, like they said, obviously we can't do anything about it. Now, moving forward, what have we done, like, are we,
He's a lot already.
what's that?
There's a.
I'm just saying, have you guys put something in place?
We've had
Maybe,
some
like, that
incredible
someone can
meetings
check
and I
make
think
sure
we
that
had a
this
pretty
is
stern conversation with the county too, because it's. They know that they didn't ask for forever, you know, you can't just
Right.
act like no permits get submitted from the largest growing municipality in your county.
No,
You know,
correct.
there's 8,000 people live here and, you know, a lot of commercial development, you act like it was nothing and then, you know, upon which time someone else departs, you're like, ah, can't believe you didn't send us. It's like, you didn't ask,
I was told,
you know, so.
what
I
the
just want, I
problem
just
was,
wonder if there's something
because
implemented that.
the new
won't
assessor
happen
came
again. Like, hope, you know what I mean?
Doesn't,
no, but a new assessor came in, the old assessor hadn't
they retired.
followed up on this. And the new assessor said to me, he said, what happened to all these permits, for the last 2 or 3 years?
Right.
First we ever heard of it.
Alright, I'm gonna entertain a
One
motion.
last question, it's a quick one. and
Last one.
Non-confrontational.
Sure.
The new zoning officer, how many other municipalities does he represent?
As far as I know, at least including us, there's 2 in Monroe County. I think there are others. I know that firm does others in Monroe County, not just for zoning, but some do only for building codes. Like I think that's what Coolwater Township does. And then there are several other municipalities that use another firm for both.
Right.
So not every municipality has an in-house zoning officer.
And
It-
my
Right, yeah, no, I get it. I'm
understanding
just
is
wondering
also,
How thin he's spread.
I would think that he's in pretty good shape. His home office is at the other municipality that they represent in Tobyhanna Township.
he
So-
lives in this township.
And he's very close to here. I'm not gonna disclose where he lives, but he's accessible. So we feel very confident in Tobyhanna's got some good people.
I was just gonna say, well, it's also my understanding as a firm, just like if John is not here, Missy can come, there is the possibility of accessing other people if there is a need, if for some reason he gets too strict. We have hired the firm, we have not hired Matt. Also, my understanding is if we do not feel comfortable with Matt and for some reason we're not happy with that, we could also ask that there be a different person.
Good. And they have lots of people.
That's my understanding, I don't,
It is.
yeah, we can also,
we have 2
dump- we
people.
can also
We have-
dump Veritas
we
in
have a-
30 days. if
We
we
have
want
a
to.
backup, yeah.
If we decided that it was, that was one of the reasons we went with the firm, we discussed this, was that it also would be really easy if we weren't happy with this route and wanted to hire someone, or someone emerged that seemed like they'd be a great person to have as a zoning officer, we could always switch to that. A lot easier than going the other way around, and
Correct.
as you rightly pointed, we wanted to get this done.
Kudos. That's a very, really good decision on your part. Thank you.
We also say, just as sort of the historian here, that when I came into this township, it was kind of a little cabal that ran it, and it was really the Shawnee-on-Delaware Township. And it's evolved into something
It
that's
still
much bigger,
is.
and much more competent. And you wouldn't be sitting here tonight if it wasn't a place where it was a forum, you could ask questions, we could answer them, we could do this. I can't tell you how many days I spent, especially in the winter, where there was nobody here for these meetings. And this is great. It may put us in an uncomfortable position once in a while, but this is what we should be doing. And that you're here is great. And I look back 8 or 10 years, none of this went on. And everybody felt that they weren't represented.
I was the only person that came for several years.
Huh?
I was the only person that came for several years.
Yeah,
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes. Second.
are you doing that to shut me up?
Yes.
It's a non-debatable motion. All in favor? Aye.
We do appreciate your openness to questions. We really do.
Yes, thank you.